I'd like to start at the beginning. So I think, especially given your backgrounds, I think different operators look at sourcing and originating projects from slightly different relationships, the types of deals you do other than EB-5. So I would love to hear how you identify and structure viable EB-5 projects, and kind of how that's changed over time, especially given the market that we are currently in, because EB-5 doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in the economic economy that we are currently in. So I'd be interested in hearing. Sebastian, would you be willing to go first?
Sure. So in terms of structuring, look, again, as an economic development corporation, we touch a lot of different types of deals, and we use various types of financing tools. So as you know, ACC Capital, our mothership, is involved in, of course, EB-5, but also new market tax credits, CDFI lending, SBA lending, venture capital. So we're staffed to look at a lot of different types of deals and a lot of different types of structures. We do structure in-house, and I would say we have the tools to do good due diligence in-house. But of course, we do also rely on external partners and parties, and we can obviously talk more about that. But generally speaking, we will have a due diligence department that will source deals, that will look at deals, and see if they fit for one or the other type of financing that we can provide. And at times, we will provide more than one type of financing into the same transaction.
Absolutely. It's interesting, I would imagine, especially trying to balance the different sources of capital that often form in capital stack and seeing how they interplay together. I think it's more important than ever, given how hard it is to get financing these days in this challenging economy. Noreen, I know that CMB has worked with a partner for many of its deals, but you also do source projects from other relationships as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Christine. Our partnerships, similar to yours, are structured to provide construction debt to new development projects. Typically, CMB is either in the senior or the mezzanine position. But to your point, how do I identify deals? Obviously, leveraging existing relationships, whether those are existing attorney relationships where you sit across from transaction attorneys that work on other deals with other developers. We've gotten leads through that, from attending conferences, from banking relationships, construction consultants, asset managers. But I mean, our favorite is finding good quality developers who really understand and embrace the EB-5 capital as part of the capital stack as part of their project, and then building upon success and then replicating it thereafter. You mentioned there's a developer that we've done, over 44 deals with, Hillwood. They're an incredible partner, and what we're always looking for in developer relationships is someone who understands that it's just not money, it's people behind the EB-5. And that's really important for us and for our investors.
Absolutely. I think, Sebastian, both you and Noreen, I can speak a lot towards the importance of having a borrower developer on the other side of the transaction who is understanding that this is not just a bank loan or anything else. That there are, on the one hand, all the questions that come from nervous investors who are trying to understand what's going on with their project, and on the other hand, also all the USCS requirements that come along, some of which are reasonable and some of don't seem as reasonable as others.
And by the way, Christine, I would add, just to what you were just saying here, to make it clear, we're an independent regional center. That's not always the case in EB-5, right? There are regional centers that are also the developer themselves. That's not the case with us, where we are essentially, our fiduciary obligation is to the EB-5 investor. We are like a bank that's providing financing. We are a lender to projects, but we don't take equity stakes in the projects. And so, in terms of our sourcing, yes, we, similar to Noreen and CMB, we do tend to work with large equity players and developers repeatedly. We've had the opportunity to work with Koch Industries and TPG and groups like that now for the last decade. But oftentimes our sourcing also comes from the government. In our particular case, we work closely with the economic councils, the chambers of commerce, and the governor's offices in the states that we're active in, because the types of projects that we will look at tend to be large industrial projects that for whom the states are often competing to get them to come to their respective states, and we'll play a role in that.
Absolutely. I think having a development partner who kind of understands EB-5 and how those various different sources of capital, whether they're talking to their senior financing or their equity partners to get them comfortable with EB-5 is something that really aids the successful management of the project, moving forward. Dan, where do you, for the most part, I know historically most of your projects have been in the region where you guys are, but you've expanded a lot, which I'm sure post RIA, which kind of has shifted some of the sourcing and origination, I'm sure you guys have had to look at.
Yeah, I think, like you and Noreen said, you get a quality developer, that's a big deal. So we get approached, as I'm sure you do, with a lot of deals. And it's finding the good quality deals. And when it comes to EB-5 structure, if you're working with somebody that has not done an EB-5 deal before, it can make for a very complicated, slow, and frankly irritating deal to put together. So, we've done a lot in the Milwaukee area, California. We're doing a bunch in Utah right now. But it's pairing those good quality developers. So finding a developer that you like, to Noreen's point, and you trust and you understand, that's huge. We've done that, but also then those referrals from those developers. Developers, sometimes they have projects that fit EB-5, sometimes they don't. But we've done really well with people we have worked with in EB-5, telling others, hey, this is a great way to get your development done. And that's been a really good way, because the amount of emails and calls you can get in one office looking for funding, especially in downturns in the economy, can be overwhelming. So again, pairing with those people that you trust and have worked with before, or at least are a good referral source, has always worked really well for us.
Absolutely. I think that, we're in one of these moments now. We've been through them, 2007 and other challenging economic times, where EB-5 becomes a very popular form of capital, but educating them on what it really involves. It really does filter out people who are not a good fit, projects that are not a good fit, and then long-term relationships that will lead to other projects down the road, because they understand what the program's about. So.
Well, and that's why it's nice to have a project that comes to you almost ready for EB-5, because EB-5 is unique compared to other financing. Sebastian's point, you can act almost like a bank in funding it, but there's a lot of nuance to it that a bank doesn't have to deal with. So instead of spending all the time structuring it for EB-5, if you already have a cookie cutter way to do it with someone you've worked with, it makes it a lot easier. But otherwise, if we do get a project, somebody we haven't worked with before, we do spend a lot of time working on that structure to make sure it fits EB-5 from a regulatory standpoint, but also for what investors are looking for. Because as you guys all know, ultimately you have to sell this project in the market. Investors have to say, hey, that's something I want to invest in. And if it's not structured properly, that's not.